What's up, guys? As I've been posting some of the discs that I've dyed, I've been getting a lot of requests to ask me to make a video on how to do it. So I have this disc from Will Sherrill, a Discraft family member, and I'm going to show you how to make this look like this. Alright, so first here's a quick list of things you're going to need before you get started. Number one, obviously you're going to need a disc that you're going to dye. Premium plastic, like we all know, works better. You're going to need a plate, a bowl, or I just use an old Frisbee to put it in while you're dyeing it. You're going to need dye. You're going to need contact paper. You're going to need a medium like glue, shampoo, or lotion. This is mostly going to be lotion with a little bit of glue probably. Other things that are helpful but not totally necessary are skewers or toothpicks, something that you can drag the dye around in, and small syringes. We also have containers to put the dye in, and you're going to need some acetone to mix with the RIT dye if that's what you're using. Alright guys, so here's the discs that I've dyed before. The main ones that we're going to be focusing on are these two, because this is kind of the style that I'm going to go with. As soon as I saw his disc with the logo being round, I realized that I wanted to do another one of these dyes. I've been wanting to try another one, and this is just kind of the perfect disc. But these are just one style that you can do. So here's another few quick examples. I made like this volcano one, and obviously some of this is UV reactive, so you might be able to see that. This is one of the first ones I did on my PDGA disc. These are some random ones that I've done that are cool. Here's a zombie that I did recently. So there's a lot of variation, but like I said, we're gonna focus on this kind of space and moon or planet style first. The first thing we're gonna have to do is cover the circle up, mask it off with contact paper, because we want to dye everything outside of it, but we don't want to dye the middle of this. One thing I forgot to mention that you will need is an X-Acto knife. For the first step, you just need a small piece, just big enough to cover the circle. When you put it on, obviously you just want to cover up the circle or whatever area you're going to be hiding, and make sure that you get all the air bubbles out. Now, if you're doing this and you didn't have a disc that already had a circle on it, I would draw out on the contact paper a circle, just trace a cup or something, and then cut it out with a pair of scissors or whatever, and then you just have a circle that you can place right on the disc and you're done. In this case, I'm going to trace his logo around and cut it out and then peel off everything that's outside of it. One thing to keep in mind when you're cutting out stuff is that the stamps don't dye. So I don't have to be perfectly perfect the whole way around. I just need to be in this thick purple line here and it won't dye. Now that we've got it cut out, just peel off the excess. Once you've got that excess cut off, you just want to go around and make sure you don't have anything overlapping past the line that you would want. Or if you already put a circle on here because you cut it out ahead of time, then you're good to go. One thing to keep in mind when you're tracing around the stamp on a disc is that when you're cutting through the contact paper with the knife, you can cut through the stamp and kind of scrape it off. So you don't want to push too hard. All right, so now the disc is ready to be put in the dye. We have the circle masked off. And with this kind of spacey look, it's really important to realize that the color of disc you're dyeing makes a big difference. The color that the disc is what is going to come through for the parts that didn't dye, obviously. So, for example, on this disc, you can see all that white is because it's a white disc. Whereas this has bits of orange and stuff peeking through, which look really cool because it's an orange disc. All right, so for this disc, I think I'm going to go with some purple. I'm going to go with some red. And I'm gonna put a little bit of probably blue and orange quick coat. This is Worm Dip. It's really bright and it's UV reactive. The purple and the red are gonna make up a lot of it. And then there's gonna be little bits of this glowing dye in the middle. I'm also gonna kind of try and do what I did on this one, where I have the color that the planet's gonna be is gonna have some of that color hidden in around it. So it looks like it's kind of reflecting off the stuff around it. I'm gonna do the same thing here on this part of the disc. Also, I don't know if you can see, but this super blurry section of it is because I used some glue. So I'm also gonna put some of that on his disc. Hopefully it'll come out kind of similar. In order to set the bed and put the dye down, you need something like this. Most people are familiar. Frisbee, you can use a plate, a bowl, a pan, whatever works for you. I'm mostly using lotion, so I'm gonna cover the whole thing in lotion, and then the parts that I want a little bit of glue, I'm gonna just add on top. A lot of times once I throw the lotion and I shake it up a little bit to get it to spread out, fill in some of the gaps, because the texture that you have on here a lot of times is what you're going to get on the disc. Alright, so now we have to get ready for our dye. So for this type of dye, you need to mix it with a little bit of acetone. So get a container like this, a little bit of dye. That's way more than we need. And then some acetone. The acetone I like to add with the syringe too, just to keep track of how much I'm putting in. Next up, purple, same thing. All right, so that's our red and purple, and then we have blue and orange here, depending on how we want to use it. Now, especially with something like this, is where you need to have a plan for what you're going to do. So I know that for this moon thing, I'm going to make it kind of red and orange, since that's already the color of the disc, and I won't have to dye it that much, and it will look really nice. Similar to what I did with here is I made the main color kind of similar to the disc color, so I didn't have to do a whole lot to make it look nice. So because I'm gonna have some red and orange here, I need it to stand out and contrast from what is out on the rest of the disc. So I wanna make sure that it's pretty dark with purple, and then the dark red, since I'm gonna have the bright orange and some blue up around this later. All right, so one more thing before I add the dye onto here is I'm gonna add a little bit of glue, because I wanna get that look of multiple textures on the disc here. I'm not going to cover the whole thing, but for just parts of it I will. And again, I'm not going crazy with this, so I'm just going to cover a patch over here, and that's pretty much all. I'm also going to throw some random strands across it and just see what happens. That's the nice thing about this type of dyeing, is you don't really have to be that precise most of the time. Now keep in mind when you're putting dye down that if you have a stencil or something, that it's going to be flipped over. And one thing I like about this dye is a lot of this disc color came through over on the side with this moon or planet or whatever. So I want to keep that in mind and make sure that I'm really heavy in the areas that are away from that and a little lighter in the areas over here. Which means I'm going to put a lot of purple in this area with some red, and then more red up here but less ink overall, and then hopefully some of the disc will peek through. But like I mentioned, this is going to be on this side. So I want to make this the heavy area and this the light area. And we're just going to drop a bunch on here. It's kind of hit or miss. You got to do a couple to see how much you need for the different styles you want. But general practices is you can put a decent amount. You just don't want big puddles of it. All right, now for the red stuff, we're gonna just put a bunch of red with that purple and then some more red up here where the moon is gonna be. The nice thing about this is if we pull the disc out and it's not quite what we want, we can add a little bit and just throw it back in. So now you're gonna take a skewer and we wanna mix all this up. Now keep in mind, I have glue over here, so I don't wanna mix that everywhere, but you're gonna mix this up and make it kind of swirly. And for the space style that I'm doing, you kind of want it generally random. If you want, you can pick a direction where all of it kind of goes. Or you can do it more random like this. It's all up to you. Since I'm gonna have some brighter colors and trying to make it look like there's some light on the disc, I'm gonna pick a little bit of a direction around that moon area to kind of pull away, so that when I put other colors in there, it'll look like it's shining light. Make sure you get the edges really well. They will push up onto the side of the disc, but you want to make sure you don't leave dye missing there, or else you'll end up with just big missing spots on your disc. So since I'm going to do kind of a red and I think yellow-ish in here behind the purple, with maybe a little bit of blue, I'm going to drop some of this UV reactive blue dye in here, and then a little bit of the red and yellow around the moon, and just a tiny bit so that it's there when you hit it with the black light, and so that there's kind of another depth of color. Since the blue kind of matches the purple and the red for the space look, this isn't supposed to be part of the actual moon itself or the light. I'm going to keep this kind of further away. I know with this blue, it doesn't come through super strong, so I didn't have to be super careful with it. It's not like it's going to overpower everything. And now I just need to kind of streak it through there. Just mix it in a little bit. Now for this more red area up here, I'm gonna add some of this orange, and I'm just gonna kind of put a few drops and then pull streaks through with the red, just so there's a little bit mixed in. Now you can see it's kind of random. There is some sort of pattern to it, sort of. And that's all I'm gonna do. I don't wanna go overboard. And remember, we've got this covered. And then all there is left to do is to put this down in the dye, in the lotion. And then we wanna push it down until we see lotion around just on the edge here. And then we're gonna put just like 2 of these jars on top to hold it down. Just like that. One more thing to keep in mind is rubber gloves are really good for this, especially when you're using this worm dip stuff, because it will dye your fingers instantly. The other thing is, once it's in there, you don't want to move it too much, because as you move it, you're going to pull dye around and cause streaks. You can do that on purpose if you're trying to get that effect. As you push down, it will pull dye around the edges a little bit. So if you have less lotion in there and you push really hard, you're going to get a little bit of streaks going out. Whereas if you put a bunch of lotion in and just kind of set it in gently, you'll get more of the exact pattern that you put on there. So with this one, I'll probably pull it out in about 24 hours, especially since I have a lot of dye on there. I think that I'll at least get an idea what it's going to look like. But I also will leave them in up to 2 days, depending on what I'm trying to do and the color of the plastic that I'm dyeing. I think this is going to dye really well, so I'm not too worried about it. So let's check back in about a day and see how it looks. All right, we're ready to show you the final result for the disc. I went ahead and pulled it out of the lotion off camera and rinsed it off, but basically all you have to do is pull it out, rinse it under cold water, make sure you wipe it down real good and get all the lotion or glue off of it, and then you're done. The one thing I didn't do on this disc that I did on some of the other ones was a step 2, where I actually dyed the planet section. And I'll go over that in a second here, how I did that. But I decided to skip it on this one for reasons that you'll see in a second. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. So before I show you the one that I made for Will, here's another one that I dyed because I was getting bored. It's a Shrike. And this turned out awesome. This is currently up for auction on Facebook. It'll probably be sold by the time that you see this. Looks pretty sweet under a black light, if that shows up on camera at all. So just figured I'd share that with you. I thought that came out pretty good. Now, for this disc, like I said, I did not dye the planet or the moon section. And the way that I would do this if I had done it, I'm gonna go over with you real quick. Basically, take shaving cream in one of these cups, and you're gonna just put some shaving cream in there, and then mix whatever color dye you want. Whether the RIT dye will work, but you can also mix it with the worm dip stuff. And once you have that all mixed up to the kind of the color that you want, take your disc and you put contact paper on the whole thing, well, or really at least just the area around the circle, and then you cut out the circle and peel it off. So now you have the circle is exposed, but the area directly surrounding it totally covered up. Go ahead and take a paintbrush or something else. I use a paintbrush because it gives it a little bit of that texture. And you want to spread it over top of that circle area. And then that's going to dye it, obviously whatever color you made the shaving cream. But in order to get this texture and some of these squiggles and stuff like that, and make it look really cool, take a skewer or a toothpick and put a couple extra drops of dye on top of the shaving cream on the disc, and then use the skewer to kind of form a channel and push all that concentrated dye to the bottom so it bleeds through under all the shaving cream, and then just kind of drag across and pull it through the shaving cream down to the bottom. And that way it lets dye directly contact the disc rather than be diffused in the shaving cream, and you kind of get this pattern. You can also do it like I did on this one, where I use a second color and I drop some blue on top of it as well. And then so you have the blue squiggles on top of the yellow moon. So that's how you do that if you're interested in actually seeing that happen. I can make a quick video about that too. So just drop a comment if you want to see that. We'll set the goal really high. If one person comments that they want to see how I do this, then I'll make a video about it. All right, now to the cool part of the video where you get to see the finished product. Now, like I said, I did not dye the moon part, but as you see, this disc is pretty sweet, so it came out all right anyway. So without further ado, here is the disc. I think this disc came out awesome. It is super dark, super deep purple, super deep vibrant red. It came out awesome. There's tons of depth to it, and I think it looks great. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. Now remember when I was putting the dye in the lotion, I mentioned I wanted this red area over here where the kind of planet was, and this to be more purple and dark on this side, and you can see it turned out perfectly exactly like I wanted. So that worked out great as well. Now, I left this in for a solid 24 to like 28 hours, and that's kind of what I would recommend if you want these really deep colors. You can do like 18 hours, 12 hours if you want, but it doesn't always turn out like this, especially when you're using these darker colors. You can see on this disc that it's a little bit lighter, and that's because this disc was not in the dye nearly as long. It still looks really cool on this disc, but it obviously is not nearly as dark as this disc. Now, again, the reason I didn't dye this moon planet section is I think the swirls look really cool. He already has his logo in here, which is adding, you know, some texture, some depth to it, so it doesn't look like just a big flat blank space on the disc. And I didn't know exactly, once this came out, I really liked how the space looked, and I didn't know if I would be able to get the right color that I wanted to dye this moon. And I didn't want to make it look weird or mess it up by trying to make some really specific color. So I just decided, I figured, hey, the plastic is really sick the way that it is, and the logo and stuff, it's already swirly. I think it looks great. And truth be told, I am going out of town tomorrow morning for work for a couple days, and I really wanted to get this done, get the video up so I can edit it while I'm away, and get this in the mail to Will so that he can enjoy it in person. So like I said, I'm really happy with how this one came out. If you're interested in seeing, you know, more specific stuff with the moon and how I got that texture, or any other methods, like if you want to see me do something crazy like this, let me know. I'm happy to make a video about it. It's honestly not all that difficult. And if you want to see me make a video like just experimenting with different stuff, I'm happy to record my process. I have a couple different supplies I want to mess around with. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Other than that, drop a comment or like the video, subscribe, do it, whatever you want. I'm sure you're a grown adult. You can make decisions for yourself. Unless you're a kid, then I guess ask your parent what to do. But anyways, here's the finished product. And before we go, let's see what it looks like under a black light. You can see that blue peeking through, and then you have this nice fire red kind of top around the moon there. Anyway guys, that's all I got. So thanks for watching. Hope this video wasn't too long. If you liked it, subscribe or whatever, like I said, and look out for the next stuff.